Go.
I'm Trudy Bialic. I'm the Director of Public Affairs for PCC Natural Markets in Seattle, Washington. And I'm here to talk about local and genetic diversity. And what I want to say is that when you walk into a supermarket and you see all the things around you, all the many choices, it seems like there's just an endless number of possibilities to choose from. But when you consider that at the turn of the century, before the industrialized revolution, farmers relied on about 80,000 varieties of plants and animals. Today they rely on about 150. And so that's sort of an indicator of how our choices really have been limited without us even realizing it. So here also, we've got some wild harvested chanterelle mushrooms. We've got some tricolor carrots. We've got some organic gold beets. All of those are examples of older strains or unusual strains of crops that have been raised in a particular microclimate. It's not to say that local farms will automatically have more genetic diversity than a large farm. You're going to have just as many large industrial scale farms around urban centers as there are smaller farms. But the smaller farms are going to be more likely to sell those unusual kinds of crops at a farmer's market. Or also at a locally owned supermarket like PCC Natural Markets, which is very different than a national chain store. We are a cooperative. We're owned by the shoppers who shop in our store, so we're a locally owned business. We help keep those profits circulating from the store back to the farmer, through the consumer, and in the community. That's all I have to say.
Now, I talked to someone with Seattle Good Business Network who talked about how every dollar spent on a local product like triple
14 times.
14 times.
Well, I think it's I forget the numbers.
It's a lot about how
It's quite a bit more.
Putting the money back in.
That's a local economy. It definitely keeps the dollars. It leverages the money a lot more, and it's different than shipping it out of state.
Well, yeah, and the Seattle Farmers Market groups, you know, it is all very local, at least within 150 miles.
The other thing I want to say is that local alone doesn't necessarily mean that the food is grown in a more environmentally friendly way, or that it's even more carbon friendly, emitting fewer greenhouse gases in the life cycle of that food. That's not necessarily true. You can have just as many chemicals on the food, and you can have just as much monocropping going on. It's really the scale of the farm and the choice of the farmer in his farm plan whether he's going to have diversity or not. But it can be, and it is generally more likely, that you will find more genetically diverse foods from a smaller independent farm in your local community, selling it at a farmer's market or a small retailer.
And then PCC carries only organic, or do they still have some transitionals? Or
94% of the produce is organic.
Okay. And I read an article recently in the Consumer that people have a tendency to forget about having to read labels when they walk into PCC. It's kind of encouraging people to still read labels because you think it's all been pre-screened when you come in.
Always. A company can change ingredients anytime without warning, and they don't have to notify the retailer or the consumer.
And so sometimes it's the consumer that catches change in product, change in ingredients too. So, well, Trudy, I really want to thank you for your time and thank you for your support for Eat Local Now.
Thank you.